Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. Today we are talking about MultiVersus, Warner Brothers' new platform fighting game. The game is currently in closed alpha now, and in this video we'll be talking about the game itself and the gameplay. Now, before we get into it, just want to let you know that this video is actually sponsored by MultiVersus. Yes, rooflemonger in a sponsorship. It was bound to happen eventually, I guess. Warner and Player First Games were very generous and actually gave me a little bit of an early access period ahead of the closed alpha just to check out the game. And overall, my early impressions are, well, very positive. Now, if you are not a regular of the channel and you found this through like YouTube search or something, just so you know, this is very much a fighting game channel, but normally we cover more traditional fighters, right? So 2D, 3D fighters, not so much platform fighters. So my experience with platform fighters is limited compared to some. I've certainly played enough Smash in my day, but it's not my main game, right? That said, once again, I found this game pretty fun and impressive, so well, let's talk about it. So MultiVersus is a platform fighter game, right? That's obvious enough. But one of the things I find very interesting is the focus. You can do the usual stuff, 1v1 or free-for-alls or whatever, but the main focus is on 2v2 teams. The majority of the game and the majority of the characters are balanced around the fact that you'll be playing in a 2v2 team setting. Now, if you want to do free-for-alls or if you just want to do core 101s, that's still absolutely valid, but teams is the main focus. To that point, it's well represented in even character selection. Every character has a class, like Steven Universe is a support, Garnet is a bruiser, Harley Quinn is an assassin. Everyone tells you generally what they're kind of good at. Assassins are more focused on damage, supports are more about helping their teammates. There's also mages, tanks, it all plays into the team format. Let's use Wonder Woman as an example. So just like everyone, Wonder Woman has a wide variety of attacks. However, multiple versions of her specials are different if there's a teammate involved. Like say her down special, if you use it by itself, it just gives you armor. That's it, that's all. However, in a 2v2 format, when you do the move, Wonder Woman will basically rush towards your teammate and it'll give herself armor and also give your teammate armor. So you both get the benefit of the armor. So if you're looking to have a playstyle that involves abusing a lot of super armor, Wonder Woman's a great fit for it because she can give her partner armor on top of herself. Stuff like Wonder Woman's whip. So it's a big attack, lots of active frames, controls a lot of space, that's great, but it also has a bonus when there's teammates involved. The whip, if it hits an ally, brings them in so you can use it to save them from falling off the ledge, and also if it connects, it applies another shield buff to them, so more armor. So basically, in a 2v2 setting, if you're playing with a Wonder Woman character, Wonder Woman can keep giving you multiple sources of armor that you wouldn't otherwise normally get, right? So she's a strong defensive teammate. Just one example of many, right? But it shows that 2v2 in this game is a lot more than just you pick two characters and beat each other's heads in. There is a lot of potential for strategy and teamwork. Now that said, I also want to talk about just the characters themselves because I find them, well, pretty fun. In a lot of platform fighters, there's a lot of, well, let's call it for what it is, a lot of basic characters, right? Especially if you're the sword-minded kind of character. You swing your sword, that's about it. Very little flash and flare. A lot of characters in this game, I found a lot of their tools pretty fun and inventive, honestly. Like Tom and Jerry, they're just animated brilliantly. Like, they're trying to kill each other, and you getting hit is incidental to them fighting each other. Like, that's really fun. Like they're smacking each other around and you're just a byproduct of the chaos basically. And also it's like a semi-puppet character in a way. Like Tom can detach Jerry from him as part of some of his moveset, right? And then he stays there on the map and then he can shoot projectiles on his own and then you can interact with those projectiles and swing them back at the enemy, creating a lot of weird situations as you can see. Reminiscent of Ness, you can also send Jerry up on a rocket and control him, and then Jerry's just on the stage from that point, and then you go from there. And also, what he shoots out also hit the enemy as well. You don't need Tom to utilize it and swing it back at him. Just very multifaceted. Someone like Shaggy, who's basically the most basic member of the cast, even him, he's got some stuff, right? He has a lot of platform fighter classics. You know, pick up stuff out of the ground, throw it. He has an uppercut, jumping knee attack, that kind of stuff, right? But he's very much defined by the Super Saiyan status. He can buff himself up. Everyone wanted Super Saiyan Shaggy. Now you get it, right? And it gives him all sorts of new moves, new properties. Like that move right there is an armored ground explosion move. If he has the buff up and he does his uppercut, then all of a sudden it becomes like Shin Shoryuken, has multiple hits, and blasts the enemy up crazily. If you got your sandwich up and then do the buff, then the sandwich becomes like a super homing turbo sandwich, basically. Like a massive monster projectile. In a one-on-one setting, no one's going to let you get the Super Saiyan buff off, right? It takes a couple seconds to get going. But in teams, your teammate can run interference and let you get the buff, and then all of a sudden you're extra deadly and people really got to start watching out. And then you have completely oddball characters like Velma. So Velma is the closest thing I could say. She's like Phoenix Wright, I guess. She has a lot of debuffs for the enemy, a lot of buffs for your tag partner, and she's all about collecting evidence. Certain moves she has can spawn evidence. And when you pick up enough evidence, she basically gets the equivalent of like an ultimate attack. And she can call the police on you and sick you. And then it does a lot of damage and creates like a capture state and it tries to ring itself out. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So far though, Jake's been my personal favorite. He has the move that you spam when you're bad at platform fighters like I am. Also, your partner can jump off that bouncy house. That's pretty cool. He has very long limbs. He can charge up a long-range projectile, giving him more range, and also he can aim it, so his space control is pretty strong. He can also eat his enemies and debuff them, although sadly you can't do what you really want to do with it. Now, one of the biggest things about this game, titanically big deal, is something I didn't even think about until I started making this video, and that is the quality of the online play. If you're familiar with fighting games in any way, shape, or form, you know that quality of online play is one of the biggest fights in the history of fighting games, because it's been a struggle for such a long time. Only in very recent memory has things started becoming decent, right? Now, in this game, generally speaking, we go for the 2v2 format, right? So there's 4 characters, 4 players. And in my time with this game, in the many, many games I've played already, I can legitimately and honestly say I haven't had a single problem with anything. To the point where, honestly, until making this video, I never thought about playing online. Just like, oh, I play the game and whatever, don't think about it, right? Even games with good online, like say Guilty Gear Strive, you eventually run into the crap, matchup, right? Like where a dude's on Wi-Fi or something, and it's just, the playability is very, very low. Now, this has 4 players, and in many, many matches, I didn't have a single issue. It basically feels like offline, and that's crazy. In a recent marketing video they put out, they talked about how they want to have best-in-class online. And you know what? I think they actually pulled it off. I've had a PlayStation like stretching hours long, and not at one point did I feel any bit of lag, any bit of input delay, any bit of wonkiness. It just felt like offline. And considering the fast pace, the very high actions per minute of platform fighters, especially considered to more traditional fighters, that's extra impressive. Like, it is truly a feat they have pulled off. So basically what I'm trying to say is big ups to the developers. They picked a genre that's notorious for bad online play, and they put in more players than you usually get, and they managed to have what they said. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best in class netcode. It is amazing. Also, in kudos to the developers, this is going to be on most platforms, PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and it is indeed cross-platform. Online play was one of the biggest fights, and we're finally getting there in the FGC, and now the next biggest fight is cross-platform, and this game will be cross-platform. So Xbox can play with PlayStation, PlayStation can play with PC, this, that, and the other, and on top of that, everything's going to be cross-progression. So if I unlock Superman on PC, I can play him on Xbox and PlayStation. That's just fantastic. The quality of life feature set in this game is simply beyond pretty much every other presentation we have in fighting games. So I can only hope other developers follow suit in MultiVersus' example. And finally, for the gameplay itself, as someone who is more on the traditional fighter end of things and not so much the platform fighter thing, it's intuitive, it makes sense. As far as like a lot of the mechanics go, this is not a game where you can block. You have to just not be in the way. Now, there's a lot of ways to not be in the way. You do have a dodge meter. That's the blue bar under the character. And basically, when you dodge, the more dodge meter you have, the more invincible your dodge is. And you can dodge in all sorts of directions. So the big fight is just getting in and getting stuck in. And the more you spam dodge, the more your dodge is going to suck and the less it'll actually help you out. Super armor is a universal mechanic, and armor breaking is also universal. If you see any attack flash purple, that's an armor break. So it's almost like Street Fighter 4 in that way. There's a wide, host of like status effects and debuffs, and playing with character combinations can also help that out quite a bit. Like say Velma and Superman both have moves that can freeze you. Freeze doesn't happen right away, you have to build up freeze stacks, but if they're both doing it, they're going to freeze you in no time, right? So a freeze synergy Superman Velma team could very much be a thing. The biggest thing I could say is this game is very easy to understand for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in the platform fighting genre, right? Put me in a 2D or 3D fighter, whatever, I'll figure it out quick. But for platform fighters, I'm not that great. So this game is very welcoming and understanding, and that helps a lot. Not the least of which is the lab, and I do appreciate they just called the training mode the lab. Like you can just go in and it spells out everything every character can do, clear as day, no misinterpretation. So if you're a dummy like me, this helps a lot. So that's some of my thoughts on the game. Once again, I'm just going to say this right now. As a non-platform fighter player, I'm impressed. Maybe people who come from, the platform fighter, Smash, Rivals of Aether, whatever background, maybe they have different opinions. But for me, as a more traditional fighting game player, I like what I'm seeing and it's fun. It's easy enough to understand. I think there's going to be a lot of depth in the team building aspect of the game, and I think it's a very smart idea that they're focusing on the team building aspect. If you want to do the one-on-one thing, they're not going to stop you, right? But I think this is where a lot of the meat of the game is going to be. There's also a bit of like, I guess you could call it talents kind of system, where you can equip your character with different sorts of mini-sized buffs. Could be as simple as you and your teammate do a little bit more damage, or your dodge is a little better. And there's potentially a lot of team building depth in that aspect of the game as well. Like if you and your partner want to focus on debuffs, then you can both pick your talents that are focused on debuffs and help buff each other's debuffs. And basically, it's almost like building a Magic the Gathering deck in a way, I suppose, where you just kind of build towards certain strengths on top of just what your character has to offer on a base level. But in the end, whatever your discipline may be in fighting games, no matter what style of genre of fighting games you like to play, I think this game has a little bit of something for everyone. And at the very least, since it's 2v2 focused, you can just mess around and play with your friends, right? I think that's just really cool. So it's currently in closed alpha. If you get into the alpha, you should get some extra keys to give away. So if you're looking for keys, go bug your friends that got in. And if you can't otherwise, the game is going into full open beta in July. So look forward to that. So in the end, I'm just looking forward to playing it more. It's fun. Jake the dog is really fun. I'm having a lot of fun with him. I'm also trying to mess around a little bit with Superman and Wonder Woman, although I'm just not as good with those characters. Jake just makes sense to me. Maybe it's because I was an Adventure Time fan back in the day. But anyways, that is the video, my friends. So far, I like MultiVersus. It's fun. I want to play more of it, and I suppose you can't really get much more of a glowing endorsement than that. As we close out here, I just want to say thank you very much again to WB Games for both sponsoring this video and giving me just a little bit of an early access sneak peek to the game. Greatly appreciated. That all said, now we're at the end, so thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. Go out and play some MultiVersus.